Okay, it is week 3, Tuesday. We've been taking turns doing things on the board. If you are just joining us in the recording, then at the bottom of our lecture page, there was a link to a special Jamboard. And what we had done was just made a random practice final, nothing special about it, from the page where you can generate practice finals. We've only done about a third of the class, so we're only looking at the appropriate problems for the topics we've done. Part of the Math 25 final is reviewing some Math 20 problems. So you're going to have to pick 3 review problems out of these 10 to do at the end of the term. Pick whichever 3 work best for you. So we talked about that, and we didn't record it because people were kind of getting used to writing on the Jamboard, and not everyone wanted to be recorded as they were trying things new. So we're just starting the recording now. And the first problem that's really a Math 25 problem was to do the pattern y is 2 times n plus 3. So we just did that, counting the 4 rows, because it says 4 rows. What is 2n plus 3? 2 times 1 plus 3 is 5, 2 times 2 plus 3 is 7, and so on. And then it wanted us to make some shapes. So I just, since I like colors, made blue for the 2 times n and red for the plus 3. You don't have to do colors. Okay, now we're working on this one. I am following Donna's guidance. She's saying to have 14 grams of fat, 62 grams of carbs, 21 grams of protein. She wanted to include the sugar. I said, wait, because I have a secret teacher reason for that. And then for fat, you multiply by 9 to get to calories. For carbs and protein, it's times 4. So that's where we left off. So we're not quite done with number 2. There is still the sugar to deal with, but we're saving that for later. For problem 3, we said, continuing, what percentage of the total calories come from carbs? So let's do that in blue. We had blue already. Let's do that in red. So the percent of something is going to be the part divided by whole. So the carb calories are the 84. Now I just need to know the total calories. So let's add that up. 248 plus 126 plus 84. I'm getting 458. Which is about 0.18. How do I change a decimal to a percent?
Right into, left out of.
Remember we did RipLop before, so right into percent. And we've done number 3. Okay, now let's finish number 2. I didn't include the sugar first because doing so makes number 3 more confusing. Of these 62 carb grams, there's also 10 grams of sugar. Those are part of the carb grams because sugar is a kind of carb. So we are doing a times 4 again, and we're getting 40 sugar calories. Whoops, I had a typo here. This should say calories, not carbs. But the 40 isn't part of my total. Why not?
because it was counted already.
It was counted already. We don't want to double count it. It's part of the carbs. It's already in the 248. So that's why I saved it for last, because otherwise when I did the total, someone would be confused because the 40 there, we're just skipping over it. Questions about this slide? Okay. The next thing you'll be
Well,
asked
David,
on the test. What?
I just want to clarify on that. That the problem isn't complete because we would take those steps for each one of our carbohydrates, protein.
You're right. It says change change all 4 of them: fats, carbs, sugar, and protein. So we have to do all 4.
Okay.
Okay, so next in Math 25, we did this BMR DCI stuff. Find out how many calories per day he burns by doing nothing but just being alive, and then when he's actually exercising. What's missing in this problem is that table of how do you get from BMR to DCI. So the fact that it's not printed for you on the test means it needs to be in your notes. Right? A big reason we're doing this today is to help get you used to what the test will look like. So I need to go to the notes and say Math 25 topics, metabolism. So here's our formula. We will need that. Paste. And we also will need the let's get from BMR to DCI table. So if you don't have these items in your notes yet, then here's a heads up that you'll need them in your notes sometime. Okay, anyone want to take over now that I've prepped it for the audience?
Somebody else want to go?
Okay, I can do it. That's fine. I know I have the advantage of the nice pen to draw with and stuff. So I need one of these formulas for his BMR, and he's a man, so that's the one I want. So his weight is 160. That's good as it is. We just talked a bit ago about terms. That when I have a complicated bit of arithmetic, I can break up wherever there's a plus or a minus and treat that as an independent segment. So we are doing that here, that the weight times 4.55 is sort of its own thing. And the height times 15.88 will sort of be its own thing. Now he is 5 foot 8 inches tall, so we have to change that.
68.
Yeah, so 5 each foot. We are going to multiply by 12, and then at the end we have 8 more inches. And as she said, that's indeed 68 inches. minus 30 times 5 minus 161. Wherever I've had those pluses and minuses for my terms, I leave lots of space around them. It just helps my eyes see that this is one item, this is another item, this is a third item, this is a fourth item. Okay. The calculator doesn't actually care. There's no reason for me with modern technology to do this 4 bits at a time. I can just plug the whole thing into my calculator, and it knows order of operations that the multiplying is going to happen first. So I'm getting about 1,497. Everyone's calculator agree? I didn't hit anything funny.
Yep.
So for the DCI, we take that number, and where is he on the table? He is minimally active. So man, minimally active,
1.5.
1.55. And I'm getting about 2,320. Questions about any of this?
I do kind of have a question.
Okay.
So David, when we're figuring, so the only time we really ever include their height when we're doing like calories and that kind of stuff is when we're doing this kind of work, the BMR and the
Correct.
DCI, is that correct?
We had several kinds of health formulas. When we were talking about exercise up above, then we had, where was it? This chart, remember this one, where you multiply it by the minutes and their weight? So their weight gets used
Yes.
here. We also had, back by the formulas, the heart rate formulas, which are based on age. So going back to what we had here, then the BMR formula uses all three, weight and height and age. Weight has one other place it appears in our types of problems, how many calories you burn from exercising. Age has one other place it occurs in our problems. What is your heart rates for exercising? What counts as aerobic for you? What is a little too much and you should not go beyond that? But you are correct. We don't have another case of a type of problem where height matters.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, should we do another one or good enough that we've done one? Good enough. If someone wants to show off, write it on paper and take a photo and email it to me and I'll stick it in here, or write on the board yourself because you can do that while I'm looking onward. Okay, so like that nice segue, then in problem 6, it mentioned someone's weight and height and age because we were doing BMR and needed all three of those. But when we go on to number 8 and say continuing, the only thing we need is the 103 pounds. I could just ignore the rest of that problem. Now,
8 only needed what?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. Tell me again.
So you said in number 8, we only used calories?
We only use the pounds. We don't need to know how old she is. That doesn't matter for exercising calories burned. We don't need to know that she's moderately active. We don't even need to know whether she's male or female for this problem. We don't need the height. Right? The height was there, except I cut it off. So we only need the pounds. Another difference, I made a point a moment ago that you need things in your notes to do problems for BMR and DCI. I'm not giving you those. Whereas on the test itself, I am saying how much things burned. So you don't have to put that table in your notes about how many calories different activities burned.
So the only tables we need that we've done so far
So far
are these two.
Yeah. We also, you had to know the ×4 and ×9. If it helps you to write something in your notes about which are ×4 and which are ×9.
I have that memorized, so that's fine.
The reason we do this is that the BMR and DCI information is stuff that's really used all the time in doctors' offices, right? People know these formulas. They use them. We've talked about how they're not incredibly accurate, but they're reasonably good. They are worth understanding. Whereas the fact that somebody when bicycling might burn this many calories, this is just kind of hogwash. That all depends on who you are and how you're bicycling and if there's a hill and what kind of bicycle you have. There's no reason that this kind of number is worth keeping in your notes. So I'm just going to give it to you. We all know that in real life, maybe you've done some other measurements. Maybe you have a better table because you're a personal trainer and you know how to set your resistance bike for your client, and the resistance bike instruction manual comes with some numbers based on the settings of how many calories they'll burn per minute, and so on. But these numbers aren't respectable enough to keep in your notes the way those formulas were. Okay, so let's start. So calories burned is that scale factor times pounds times the minutes. The scale factor was 0.045. The pounds was the 103. And the minutes, 2 hours and 44 minutes. So I have to take this 2 hours and 44 minutes and make it something that's only minutes. How would I do that?
Well, we already know that 2 hours is 120 minutes.
2 hours, 2 times 60 is 120. And the 44 is just kind of also there.
We divide that by 60.
Oh, we're just done. It's that many minutes.
Okay.
I could even be extra color codey and say that the pounds I had marked in green above, so let's keep it here.
David, how come we don't use the 44 minutes?
Use the what?
Well, if 2 times 60 for the 2 hours, if 2 times 60 is 120, what about the other 44 minutes?
That's why I have to add them on at the end.
Okay, sorry.
120 and 44. You see it now, or is it too squished up in the corner?
See it, kind of.
You're too squished in the corner.
Okay, so let me just do that down here then. So 2 hours and 44 minutes. So 2 times 60 minutes and 44 more minutes. So that's 120 plus 44. So 164 minutes total. Better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, squishing it doesn't always work. Okay, we should actually finish. The calculator does the work. 0.045 times 103 times 164 gives me about 760 calories. Now we're not quite done. It also asks us how many 50-calorie candies would that be? So I will do a 760, try to make equal size piles. And I get about 15. So she somehow rides her bike for almost 3 hours. If she was to go home and hog herself on 15 candies, it would all cancel out. Okay, questions on any of that page? Ready to move on? Okay, I'm going to pause the recording for just a moment. Okay, just like a couple times ago, these are respected formulas still used in doctors' offices. They're worth writing down. The heart rate formulas are also ones that people reuse in real life, so I want you to have them in your notes. So I'm not providing them to you in the middle of the test. So we'll have to go to the health decisions, grab the heart rate formulas, make sure those are in your notes. You don't need that so large. Okay. We mentioned earlier, Donna's good point, that, oops, the weight you also use in your exercising, like we just did. The height had no extra kind of problem. It was only in BMR. The age is also for the heart rate. So when I get a heart rate problem, then I need that person's age, but I've left out their weight. I've left out their height. I've left out their activity level. I've left out whether they're male or female. So none of that matters for this formula. So it's a little bit of a red herring, because when you actually look at the test, it's not obvious what things from number 6 you still need. Does that make sense? So learn to train yourself not to get distracted by that. Okay, this one's easy. Anyone want to show off and take a turn on the board? I'm going to see what email I just, okay.
So I didn't understand this one. Because we went 211 minus 64 times the age, right?
Yes.
I feel like it was too much. Like the numbers were too high. So I didn't understand what we're referring to, like a minute or the whole day or.
Yeah, it's beats per minute. That's a good question. So the age is 32.
So you put 211 minus beats per minute, so it would be like when I did it, it was like I did Caroline, which was 80, so it was like 7,000 someone beats. So it's like there's no way.
Yeah, 109 beats per minute is this answer. And that is pretty high. Again, you're not supposed to get that high when exercising. That's just beyond that, you're in trouble. You might hurt yourself. Did that answer your question, Anna?
6,731.50.52.
Are you putting the decimal point in the 0.64?
Yeah, I mean, I put 211 minus 0.64 times 32.
Well, make sure that the multiplying is happening before the subtraction. So put it all in one row in your calculator, because the calculator knows the order of operations that
Keep cutting out.
your calculator knows the order of operations that the multiplying happens before the subtracting. You're getting a bigger number because you're subtracting first and then multiplying. So
Subtract first and then multiply.
multiply first,
Multiply first.
then subtract.
I did that, but then it was negative 211. I still got the wrong answer.
You still got the wrong answer. Okay, let's do it out then. So 211. So 32 times 0.64 gives me 20.48. And then 211 minus 20.48 is about 191.
That's what I got.
Does that help?
191.
It might be the way her calculator's set,
Could
David.
be. I'm
You
going
know,
to turn off
scientific
screen
or
sharing for just a little bit. If I take my calculator and look on the back, there's always a little button you can stick a pencil tip or a pen tip in to reset it. So if your calculator is ever doing math badly, do your secret reset button on the back of your calculator.
Well, okay.
See if that helps.
could usually help it with a paper hole.
I got it. Well, it's just one of those dollar store ones, so it's not like it's anything spectacular. It's just
Elizabeth, did you try putting in the 0.64 and see if you got a different answer times the 32?
yeah, I tried all that. I always just didn't understand how you got 191 and I keep getting like a higher number. Oh gosh, my computer's being I had computer trouble all morning. That's why it took me forever to get on with you guys.
That's okay. That's just part of distance learning. We do our best.
You need any?
Now my computer's cutting out, so I don't know what's going on.
Okay, I'm going to keep going and you can watch the recording later. But
That's okay. I can catch up.
okay, thank you for trying. Okay, we still have these two parts to do. So if I take this number and I do times 0.85, I get the max for what counts as good aerobic. If I do times 0.5, we get the minimum. So 191 times 0.85 is about 162 beats per minute. And 191 divided by 2 is about 96 beats per minute. So when you're exercising, you should be, if you're wanting aerobic exercise, between 96 and 162. If you get as high as 191, then you're not hurting yourself, but that's a little bit pushing it too much. Assuming you're 32 years old. Okay, questions on any of that? Okay, let me do a little bit of review just because we're getting towards the end of class time. We also had problems about yield percent, scaling up recipes. We also had problems about making proportions for how much ingredients weigh and how much you would use. We also had problems with cups and tablespoons and teaspoons and tablespoons. And that was the end of our health decisions topic. We did go ahead and do just the very beginning of the personal finance decision, talking about typicality. And then we had the difference between mean and median as two types of averages. This one you add them up and divide by how many. This one you make the ordered list. You have to put them in order first and pick the middle. And that was all. So we're almost done. We can try and finish before half hour goes by, but we're not going to make it. Let me show you again where this is, because a good habit, now that we've gotten this far into class, is to do what we're doing today a little bit on your own. Otherwise, you're going to forget the stuff we've studied because we're not using it as much anymore. So what I did was I go to the website and I look in my playgrounds. And after explorations, after reflections, after the big issue, right answers, comes the practice tests. In Math 20, they have midterms. We don't, so skip past that. And there is the only one that matters for you of all the practice tests is the overall test here. These two are both Math 20 things, you can ignore them. But the one that actually says Math 25 is the only practice test you hear about. And you are, again, good students. You know that you can follow directions, figure out which 3 review problems you will do when it's time to really do this in week 10. And also practice the ones you can do with the stuff we've done. Once you get to the things we haven't done, like mortgage tables, then stop, because we haven't done that yet, right? So maybe once a week, maybe every other week, take a practice test, see how well you do. At the bottom, there's always an answer key. You can see which ones you got right. And there you go. Then when the final exam happens, you won't have to study much because you've been up to date taking practice tests, however much is useful to you. Nothing will have changed. Nothing will be surprising. Questions about what I just went over? The comments here.
When is the final exam?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear your question.
When is the final exam? Or
It'll be at the very end. So because of starting a week late this term, then we are having our 10th week of class be what's actually normally a finals week, right? Every week is sort of +1. So the last week of class, we'll do some review work, and then we'll also do the final exam. If you look on the calendar, so syllabus, if you want an exact date, I can give it to you. So our final is scheduled for Tuesday on June 9th, but we're not going to actually sit down and try and take it at the same time. we'll talk about how the final will work another time, unless you want me to do that now.
Okay.
So sometime the week of June 8th and 9th, put time in your
And
schedule.
you're talking about the test, so I just put it on the test.
Yeah. No, we're not going to do a sit down and work for 2 hours kind of final because it's distance learning. But around here, get free time in your schedule to take a test.
Okay.
This advice is good things. So don't treat a practice test like some sort of boot camp where I'm going to look at this and sit down and try and do all the problems that we've learned, the first 15 problems, and like that. So if I was teaching you a Tai Chi exercise, and I've thought of actually making a little video to do this, I probably will. My Math 20 students especially will need it. But if I was to teach you a Tai Chi exercise, I wouldn't teach you 15 steps at once. I would say, here's the first step. Let's repeat this several times until we think we got it. Let's pay attention to what's working inside our body and how our muscles and balance are moving and so on. And once we really are comfortable with the first step, then I'll add on another one and we'll do 2 steps. And then we'll repeat that a bunch. And then I'll add on a 3rd step and we'll practice that a bunch. And then maybe I'll take a break and I say, okay, we've done the first 3 steps a lot. Let's put that behind us for now and let's just learn steps 4 and 5 and we'll work on that a lot. And then we'll put all 5 steps together and work on and so on. You'd add a little bit at a time. So do the same thing. Don't sit down and try and do 15 problems. You'll tire out your brain. And if you get more than one wrong, you can't really learn more than one thing at a time anyway. So just do the first problem or 2 or 3. Repeat that until you're happy with them. And then put them behind you and work on problems 4, 5, and 6, and so on. Every time you reload the page at the bottom, you get, every time you reload the page, you get new problems and you get a new answer key. So just practice a few problems at a time, because you can only learn a few things at a time, maybe even just one thing at a time. So don't treat it like a real final when you're practicing. Treat it more like you're learning Tai Chi or something, and do just a little bit and then a little bit more and a little bit more. And only after you can do 15 accurately, then next time you want to do a practice final, try 15, because they will be pretty fast. Does that make sense? Okay. Lastly, yeah, let's talk about the final. So what worked very well last term was to say that everyone's schedule is funny. We all have jobs and kids and stuff. That's making it hard to just sit down and have 2 or 3 hours to take a test. So what I will do is I will randomly generate one of these practice tests for each of you. You will each have your own copy, and that way I don't have to worry about anyone accusing you of looking at each other's work or things. And I will send it to you as an email, and I will keep the answer key version, and I will give you the version without the answer key showing. Then you can sit down sometime about these days, maybe the weekend before, if weekends are best for you. Probably you don't want to do it early, so it will be something like 8th, 9th, 10th, or 11th. And you'll do these problems at home. And then you will take pictures of your scratch work and put them on a shared Google Drive so we don't use up all your email space. And I can look at the pictures of your work and grade your test. Does that make sense so far? So that's almost good enough. The only problem with that is that we want your grades to be respectable. We don't want anyone to say, well, how do we know that this is really Donna's work? Maybe someone else did all this work and she just is pretending it's hers. So the last step is that sometime during this week, I will make just a one-on-one Zoom chat with you, and I will pick some problems from the same test you've already been working on and finished and turned in. And I'll say, okay, so now on the camera in front of me, explain what you did on number 4. Or here, someone else tried number 7 and made a mistake. Can you tell me where their mistake is? Or something like that. And that way, everyone in the world will know that, yes, you can really do this math. So there's the old saying of this saloon is guarded by shotgun 2 nights a week. You try and guess which nights, right? So the same kind of thing, that we don't have time for me to watch in Zoom everyone doing an entire test. But I can just pick a few problems to have you do. And since you don't know which ones I'm going to pick, then you need to be able to do all of them. And that way no one can complain and say, so-and-so passed Math 25, but we all know that spring term in 2020 was funky. Can I really trust that they learned something? That I can say, yes, you were on the spot. You had to do some things in front of me. But in general, there's not a time limit. It's all open notes. It's all calculators okay. So that's how we'll do things. And the more you write down when you send me nice pictures of your paper, the less I'll have to ask you about live in our one-on-one Zoom chat. So if you don't write much, then for more problems, I'll say, you didn't show many steps on this problem. Can you actually do it and tell me what you were thinking? Whereas if you show me lots of steps, then I can say, I can see what Timothy was thinking on number 11. I don't really have to ask him about that one. Makes sense? So that's my plan. If anyone wants a different or better plan, let me know, but that did work well last final exam time. That made the finals not so stressful because you had all the time you want by yourself and you could schedule it when it fits your schedule. And then we had 15, maybe 20 minutes of Zoom per student of just showing off that, yes, you do know this, everything is good. And if your Zoom connection doesn't work, I can just do it on the phone, and hearing you is better than nothing. Seeing is, of course, nicer too. So. Okay, it is 11:30. Any other things before I say goodbye? Let me turn off the recording just in case people had questions about